Ryan adjusted his silk tie for the third time as the black Mercedes pulled up to Romano's, the most expensive restaurant in the city. His hands were sweating, which was strange because Ryan never got nervous. He had closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but tonight felt different. Tonight was the night he would change everything. "You seem tense," Sophia said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. She looked stunning in her red dress, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders like something out of a magazine. "Is everything okay?" "Perfect," Ryan lied, forcing a smile. The small velvet box in his jacket pocket felt like it weighed 100 pounds. He had been planning this moment for weeks. Romano's wasn't just any restaurant to him. It was where he had met his ex-wife 3 years ago at a charity dinner, where he had felt love for the first time. Tonight he wanted to create new memories in the same place. The valet opened Sophia's door and Ryan walked around to take her arm. She had been his girlfriend for 8 months now, and she made him feel alive again after the darkness that followed his divorce. Sophia was everything Lisa wasn't. She was carefree, spontaneous, and she laughed at his terrible jokes. She didn't carry the weight of disappointment that had slowly crushed his marriage. "Mr. Thompson," the host greeted them with a warm smile. "Your private table is ready on the rooftop terrace." Ryan had paid extra to book the entire rooftop for the evening. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, and candles flickered on their table overlooking the city skyline. It was perfect. Too perfect. He had rehearsed his proposal speech a dozen times in the mirror that morning. "This is incredible," Sophia gasped, spinning around to take in the view. "Ryan, you didn't have to do all this." "You deserve the best," he said, pulling out her chair. His heart was racing now. In 30 minutes after they had dinner and wine, he would get down on one knee. Sophia would say yes. They would start planning their future together. The ring he had chosen was everything she loved. Classic, elegant, with a diamond that caught the light just right. The waiter brought their appetizers and filled their wine glasses with champagne. Ryan tried to focus on Sophia's story about her latest fashion design project, but his mind kept wandering. Was he doing the right thing? It felt right. Sophia made him happy in a way he hadn't been in years. "Earth to Ryan," Sophia laughed, waving her hand in front of his face. "You're in your own world tonight." "Sorry," he said, taking a sip of champagne. "Just thinking about work." "No work talk tonight," she said firmly, raising her glass. "Tonight is about us." They clinked glasses and Ryan felt some of his nerves settle. Everything was going according to plan. The food was excellent, the wine was flowing, and Sophia was glowing in the candlelight. He reached into his pocket and felt the ring box, making sure it was still there. "I need to use the restroom," Sophia said after they finished their main course. "Don't you dare order dessert without me." Ryan watched her walk away, admiring how gracefully she moved. He pulled out his phone to check the time. In 10 minutes, when she returned, he would do it. His assistant had even arranged for a photographer to be hidden nearby to capture the moment. But then everything changed. Ryan happened to look down at the main dining room through the glass railing of the rooftop terrace. The restaurant was busy, filled with couples enjoying their Friday evening. He was scanning the crowd absent-mindedly when he saw her. Lisa, his ex-wife, was sitting alone at a corner table, and she was clearly pregnant. Very pregnant. Ryan's champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, but he barely noticed the sound. His entire world had just tilted on its axis. She looked different. Her blonde hair was shorter now, and she had a glow about her that he remembered from the early days of their marriage when they were happy. But what shocked him most was her rounded belly under her navy blue dress. She was reading a book while she ate, the same way she used to do when they were married and he worked late. Ryan's mind started racing with calculations. They had been divorced for 8 months. If Lisa was that pregnant and she looked to be about 7 months along, then the timing— no, it couldn't be. During their marriage, they had tried for 3 years to have a baby. Doctor after doctor had told them it was impossible. Lisa had a condition that made pregnancy extremely unlikely. They had spent thousands of dollars on treatments that never worked. The stress of trying and failing had slowly torn them apart. Every negative pregnancy test had been like a knife to both their hearts. The inability to have children had become the elephant in the room that they couldn't talk about without fighting. Ryan had wanted to be a father so badly that it consumed him. Lisa had blamed herself, even though the doctor said it wasn't anyone's fault. Eventually, they stopped trying. They stopped talking about it. They stopped talking about a lot of things. The divorce had been painful but necessary. They were making each other miserable. Ryan had thrown himself into work, building his company into a billion-dollar empire. He had dated a few women casually before meeting Sophia, but no one had made him feel like he could trust love again until her. And now Lisa was pregnant. "Sir, are you all right?" The waiter had appeared with a broom to clean up the broken glass. "Should I bring you another drink?" "Yes," Ryan managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Make it a double." He couldn't take his eyes off Lisa. She seemed calm, content even. She was eating slowly, occasionally placing her hand on her belly in that protective way pregnant women do. Ryan had dreamed of seeing her do that gesture when they were married. He had imagined their child growing inside her, had picked out names, had planned the nursery in their house. What happened here? Sophia's voice made him jump. She was back from the restroom, looking concerned at the mess being cleaned up around their table. "I just dropped my glass," Ryan said, trying to sound normal. But his voice came out strained and unnatural. Sophia sat down and studied his face. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Are you feeling sick?" Ryan wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to explain about Lisa, about the pregnancy, about the confusion and pain that was tearing through his chest. But how could he explain something he didn't understand himself? "I'm fine," he said, accepting the new drink from the waiter. He drained half of it in one gulp, hoping the alcohol would calm his nerves. But he wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. His perfect evening was crumbling around him, and the woman he had loved and lost was sitting 50 feet below him, carrying what might be his child. The engagement ring in his pocket suddenly felt like a weight he couldn't bear. Ryan stared down at the main dining room, his heart pounding so loud he was sure Sophia could hear it. Lisa was still there, calmly eating her dinner, completely unaware that her ex-husband was watching from above. She picked up her water glass with her left hand, and Ryan noticed she wasn't wearing a wedding ring. That small detail hit him harder than it should have. "Ryan, you're scaring me," Sophia said, reaching across the table to touch his arm. "What's wrong? You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm sorry," he mumbled, forcing himself to look away from Lisa and focus on Sophia's concerned face. "I just remembered something important I forgot to handle at the office." It was a lie, but he couldn't tell Sophia the truth. Not yet. Not when his own mind was spinning with questions he couldn't answer. Sophia didn't look convinced. "Can it wait until Monday? Tonight is supposed to be special." "Special." Right. The engagement ring was still in his pocket, but proposing felt impossible now. How could he ask Sophia to marry him when his ex-wife might be carrying his child? "Of course," Ryan said, picking up his fork and pretending to eat the expensive steak on his plate. "It tasted like cardboard." "You're absolutely right." But his mind had already traveled back in time to 3 years ago when he first met Lisa at this very restaurant. She had been attending the same charity dinner, wearing a simple black dress and sitting alone at her table because her date had canceled last minute. Ryan had been immediately drawn to her quiet elegance and the way she smiled when she thought no one was watching. He remembered walking over to her table, nervous in a way that was completely unlike him. "Excuse me," he had said. "I hate to eat alone, and it looks like you might too. Would you mind some company?" Lisa had looked up at him with those green eyes that would later haunt his dreams, and said, "I was actually enjoying the peace and quiet, but I suppose you can sit down." It wasn't the most romantic beginning, but something about her wit and confidence had captivated him. They had talked for hours that night about everything and nothing. She was a teacher at an elementary school, passionate about helping kids learn to read. She had dreams of writing children's books someday. She made him laugh in a way that felt effortless and real. Their courtship had been like something out of a movie. Ryan had never been the type to fall hard and fast, but with Lisa, everything felt different. She didn't care about his money or his company. She was more impressed when he remembered small details about her day than when he surprised her with expensive gifts. They were married within a year, and for the first 6 months Ryan thought he had found his perfect life. Lisa moved into his penthouse and they talked about starting a family right away. They both wanted children, and Ryan had already started, converting one of his spare rooms into a nursery in his mind. But then the trying began, and with it, the slow unraveling of their happiness. Month after month, the pregnancy tests came back negative. At first, they laughed it off. These things took time, the doctor had assured them. But after the first year of trying, Lisa started to worry. After the second year, Ryan started to worry too. The fertility specialist had been kind but direct. Lisa had a condition that made it nearly impossible for her to conceive naturally. There were treatments they could try, but the success rates were low. Ryan remembered sitting in that sterile office, holding Lisa's hand while she cried silently, and feeling completely helpless for the first time in his adult life. They tried everything. Medications that made Lisa sick, procedures that were painful and expensive, alternative treatments that offered hope, but delivered disappointment. Ryan's home office became filled with medical bills and appointment schedules. Their conversations revolved around ovulation cycles and hormone levels instead of dreams and laughter. The worst part wasn't the failed treatments. It was watching the light slowly fade from Lisa's eyes. She started blaming herself, even though the doctors repeatedly told them it wasn't anyone's fault. She would see pregnant women on the street and have to look away. She stopped going to baby showers for her friends. She quit teaching because being around children had become too painful. Ryan had tried to be supportive, but the truth was, he was grieving too. He had wanted to be a father so desperately that it became an obsession. He would see fathers playing with their kids at the park and feel a physical ache in his chest. Every Father's Day felt like a personal failure. Their marriage became a minefield of unspoken resentment and shared disappointment. They stopped making love because it had become too clinical, too tied to schedules and ovulation strips. They stopped talking about the future because every future they had imagined included children. The final blow came during their third year of trying. Lisa had gotten pregnant finally after their most successful treatment cycle. For 2 weeks they had allowed themselves to hope. They had whispered about baby names and looked at cribs online. Ryan had even told his assistant to clear his calendar for prenatal appointments. But then Lisa started bleeding. The miscarriage happened so early that most people wouldn't have even known she was pregnant. But to them, it felt like losing their only chance at happiness. After that, Lisa stopped trying. She moved into the guest bedroom and threw herself into volunteer work. Ryan worked 18-hour days to avoid coming home to their silent, child-proof house. They were like two ghosts living in the same space, polite but distant, careful not to touch the wounds that never seemed to heal. The divorce had been inevitable, though neither of them wanted to admit it. They had simply grown too tired to keep pretending they could be happy together when their biggest dream would never come true. Ryan. Sophia's voice cut through his memories like a knife. You haven't heard a word I've said for the past 10 minutes. He looked at her. This beautiful woman who deserved so much better than a man whose heart was stuck in the past. I'm sorry. I really am. Is there someone else? Sophia asked quietly. Because if there is, I'd rather you just tell me now. Ryan's eyes drifted back down to the main dining room. Lisa was paying her bill now, her hand resting protectively on her belly. The way she moved was different from how he remembered. Slower, more careful, more purposeful. If she was 7 months pregnant and they had been divorced for 8 months, then the timeline was impossible. Unless... Ryan's mind raced back to their final months together. They had stopped trying to have a baby, but they hadn't stopped being married. There had been one night about 2 weeks before Lisa moved out, when they had reached for each other in their grief and loneliness. It had been desperate and sad and beautiful all at once, the last time they had connected as husband and wife before everything fell apart. Could it be possible? I need to make a phone call, Ryan said, standing abruptly from the table. Now? Sophia's voice rose. Ryan, what is going on? But he was already walking toward the stairs that led down to the main dining room, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had to know the truth, even if it destroyed everything. Ryan's legs felt like jelly as he walked down the marble staircase to the main dining room. Each step brought him closer to answers he wasn't sure he was ready to hear. The elegant restaurant buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses, but all he could focus on was the woman sitting alone at table 12. Lisa looked up from signing her check, just as Ryan reached her table. The color drained from her face and her hand immediately moved to protect her rounded belly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stared at each other like two people who had shared a lifetime but were now complete strangers. Hello? Lisa, Ryan said softly, his voice barely audible over the restaurant noise. Ryan. She said his name like it hurt to speak it. What are you doing here? Having dinner, he replied, then immediately felt stupid for such an obvious answer. I saw you from upstairs and I just… He trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. How do you tell your ex-wife that seeing her pregnant has turned your world upside down? Lisa's green eyes searched his face. She looked tired, he noticed, but also more beautiful than he remembered. Pregnancy suited her in a way that made his chest tight with emotions he had buried 8 months ago. You look good, she said quietly, then glanced around the restaurant. This place brings back memories. Yeah, it does. Ryan pulled out the chair across from her without asking permission. Can we talk? Lisa hesitated, her fingers nervously playing with the napkin in her lap. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, Ryan said. 5 minutes. She nodded reluctantly and Ryan sat down, trying not to stare at her belly. But it was impossible to ignore. She was definitely 7 months along, maybe 8. The timing made his head spin. Congratulations, he said, though the word felt like glass in his mouth. When are you due? Lisa's laugh had no humor in it. Really? We're going to make small talk? I don't know what else to say, Ryan admitted. I'm just shocked. The doctor said you couldn't… I know what the doctor said. Lisa cut him off, her voice sharp. Trust me, I remember every word. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Ryan watched as Lisa took a sip of her water, her wedding ring finger bare. She caught him looking and pulled her hands into her lap. Are you married? He asked, hating how desperate he sounded. No. Engaged? No. Ryan's heart hammered against his ribs. Then who's the father? Lisa's eyes flashed with anger. That's really none of your business anymore, is it? It is if it's mine. The words hung in the air between them like a bomb waiting to explode. Lisa's face went through several expressions: surprise, pain, anger, and finally resignation. What makes you think that? She asked quietly. The timing, Ryan said. You're about 7 months along. We've been divorced for 8 months. But there was that night, right before you moved out. Lisa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears she was trying hard not to shed. Yes, she whispered. It's yours. The confirmation hit Ryan like a physical blow. He gripped the edge of the table to steady himself. All those years of trying, all those failed treatments and broken dreams, and now Lisa was carrying his child after they were no longer together. How long have you known? He asked. I found out 2 months after the divorce was final, Lisa said, her voice growing stronger. I thought maybe it was stress making me sick, or just my body adjusting to not taking all those fertility drugs anymore. I never imagined… Why didn't you tell me? Ryan's voice was louder than he intended, and several nearby diners glanced their way. Lisa's eyes blazed. I tried to tell you. I called your office a dozen times. I left messages with your assistants. I even showed up at your building, but security wouldn't let me up to your floor. Ryan felt sick. After the divorce, he had told his staff to screen his calls and keep Lisa away if she tried to contact him. He had thought she might try to reconcile, and he couldn't handle that kind of conversation. He needed a clean break to move on. My assistants never told me, he said weakly. Of course they didn't, Lisa said bitterly. I'm sure you gave them very clear instructions about your crazy ex-wife. I never called you crazy. You didn't have to. Lisa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. After the 3rd time your people hung up on me, I got the message. You had moved on and didn't want anything to do with your old life. Ryan ran his hands through his hair, feeling the weight of his mistakes. Lisa, I swear I didn't know. If I had known you were trying to reach me… What? She challenged. What would you have done? Dropped everything and come running back? We were divorced for a reason, Ryan. A baby doesn't fix everything that was broken between us. But it changes things, Ryan said desperately. This is what we wanted for so long. This is our miracle. Lisa laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. My miracle, mine. I'm the one who's been going to doctor appointments alone. I'm the one who's been sick every morning for months. I'm the one who's been preparing for this baby without any help. That's not fair, Ryan said. You know I would have been there if I had known. Do I? Lisa asked. Because the last year of our marriage, you were barely there even when you were physically in the same room. You were always at the office, always working, always finding reasons to avoid coming home to our empty house. Her words stung because they were true. Ryan had thrown himself into work during their fertility struggles because it was the only place where he felt successful. At home, he felt like a failure every single day. I was trying to handle things the only way I knew how, Ryan said. By running away? Lisa said sadly, just like you're probably going to do now. From the corner of his eye, Ryan saw Sophia appear at the bottom of the stairs. She stood near the hostess station, clearly looking for him. Her face was concerned and confused. He had been gone for almost 20 minutes. I'm not running away, Ryan said. But even as he said it, he felt the pull to escape this conversation. It was too much, too complicated, too painful. Who is she? Lisa asked, following his gaze to Sophia. Ryan's stomach dropped. It's complicated. I'm sure it is. Lisa struggled to stand up, her hand bracing against the table. I should go. Wait, Ryan stood too, reaching out instinctively to steady her. The moment his hand touched her arm, he felt that familiar electric connection they had always shared. We need to figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, Lisa said, pulling away from his touch. I've been managing fine on my own. I don't need you to swoop in now and complicate things. This is my child too, Ryan said, his voice desperate. Only biologically, Lisa replied. You gave up the right to call yourself a father when you made it impossible for me to tell you about the pregnancy. Before Ryan could respond, Sophia appeared at his side. She looked between him and Lisa with growing understanding and hurt in her eyes. So this is why you've been acting so strange tonight, Sophia said quietly. Ryan felt trapped between his past and his present, between the woman who was carrying his child and the woman he had planned to propose to just an hour ago. Everything was falling apart, and he had no idea how to fix any of it. The three of them stood frozen in an uncomfortable triangle near Lisa's table. Other diners were starting to notice the tension, their conversations becoming quieter as they tried to listen without appearing obvious. Ryan felt like he was drowning in the middle of the elegant restaurant, pulled between two women who represented completely different chapters of his life. I'm Sophia, she said to Lisa, extending her hand with forced politeness. Ryan's girlfriend. Lisa looked at Sophia's outstretched hand for a moment before shaking it briefly. Lisa, Ryan's ex-wife. The one who's pregnant with his baby, Sophia added, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Ryan closed his eyes. This was exactly what he had hoped to avoid, but there was no escaping it now. When he opened his eyes again, both women were staring at him like he was a puzzle they couldn't solve. How long have you two been together? Lisa asked Sophia directly, ignoring Ryan completely. 8 months, Sophia replied. Lisa did the math quickly in her head. So you started dating right after our divorce was final? I didn't know he was married when we met, Sophia said defensively. He told me he was divorced. He was divorced, Lisa said. Barely, but technically divorced. Ryan watched this exchange feeling helpless. He had never wanted these two worlds to collide. Sophia represented his future, his chance to start fresh and be happy again. Lisa represented his past, their shared pain, and now, apparently, his child. I think we should take this conversation somewhere more private, Ryan suggested, glancing around at the curious faces surrounding them. There's nothing to discuss, Lisa said, reaching for her purse. You have your new life, Ryan. I don't want to be part of it. But the baby, Ryan started. We'll be fine without you. Lisa cut him off. Children adapt. They don't miss what they never had. Those words hit Ryan like a physical blow. He had grown up without his father, who had left when Ryan was 5 years old. He knew exactly what it felt like to wonder why your dad didn't want to be around. He had promised himself he would never do that to his own child. Sophia was studying Ryan's face with growing understanding and hurt. That's why you were so distracted tonight. That's why you kept looking down here during dinner. Sophia, I can explain, Ryan began, but she held up her hand to stop him. You brought me to the same restaurant where you used to come with her, Sophia said, her voice rising slightly. Tonight of all nights, you brought me here. Ryan's hand instinctively moved to his jacket pocket where the engagement ring was hidden. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had chosen this place because it was where he met Lisa, thinking it would bring good luck to his new relationship. Instead, it had destroyed everything. What's so special about tonight? Lisa asked, noticing the exchange between Ryan and Sophia. Sophia's laugh was bitter. He was going to propose to me. On the rooftop terrace, the same place where you probably had your first romantic dinner together. Lisa's face went pale. She looked at Ryan with a mixture of shock and something that might have been hurt. You were going to propose? Tonight? It doesn't matter now, Ryan said quietly. Of course it matters, Lisa said, her voice shaking. Do you have any idea how this looks? Your ex-wife shows up pregnant and suddenly your engagement plans are on hold? What does that say about both of us? It says that he's still in love with you, Sophia said, tears starting to spill down her cheeks. It says that I've been an idiot for 8 months thinking I could compete with a ghost. I'm not a ghost, Lisa said softly. I'm just someone who made the mistake of believing that love was enough to overcome anything. The hostess approached their table hesitantly. Excuse me, but other guests are starting to complain about the disturbance. Perhaps you could... We're leaving, Sophia said, grabbing her small purse from the table. She looked at Ryan with eyes full of disappointment and betrayal. All of us. Sophia, please. Ryan reached for her arm, but she stepped back. Don't, she said firmly. Don't make this worse than it already is. I need some time to think. About what? Ryan asked desperately. About us? About whether there is an us, Sophia replied. Because right now I'm not sure there ever really was. She walked toward the exit without looking back, her red dress a blur of color moving through the crowded restaurant. Ryan started to follow her, but Lisa's voice stopped him. Let her go, Lisa said. She deserves better than this mess. Ryan turned back to Lisa, who was slowly gathering her things. Her movements were careful and deliberate, the way pregnant women learn to move when their center of gravity has shifted. We need to talk about the baby, Ryan said. No, we don't, Lisa replied. Not tonight. Not like this. I'm tired, Ryan. I'm tired of fighting and drama and complications. I came here for a quiet dinner alone, and instead I got reminded of everything I've been trying to forget. You can't just walk away from this, Ryan said. Watch me, Lisa said, standing up. I've been doing fine on my own for months. I have a good doctor, a healthy pregnancy, and a plan for raising this child. I don't need you to fix anything, but I want to be involved, Ryan said. This is my child, too. Your child? Lisa's eyes flashed. Where were you during the morning sickness? Where were you during the scary bleeding episode at 12 weeks? Where were you when I was lying in the emergency room thinking I might lose the baby? Each question was like a knife to Ryan's heart. I didn't know. Because you didn't want to know, Lisa said. You made sure I couldn't reach you. You moved on so fast that your new girlfriend doesn't even know the real story about our marriage. What real story? Ryan asked. That we didn't fail because we couldn't have children, Lisa said, her voice breaking. We failed because when things got hard, you disappeared. You worked 18-hour days, took business trips you didn't need to take, and avoided coming home because facing our problems was too painful. Ryan wanted to deny it, but he couldn't. Everything Lisa was saying was true. He had run away from their problems instead of facing them together. You're doing it again right now, Lisa continued. The moment your comfortable new life gets complicated, you're ready to abandon it. What do you think Sophia is feeling right now? She probably thinks she was never important to you at all. The truth of Lisa's words stung because they were accurate. Ryan had spent the last hour thinking about Lisa and the baby, barely considering how devastating this must be for Sophia. I need to go find her, Ryan said. Yes, you do, Lisa agreed, and I need to go home and rest. This has been too much excitement for one evening. She walked past him toward the exit, then paused and turned back. For what it's worth, Ryan, I didn't come here to ruin your life. I had no idea you would be here tonight. Sometimes life just has terrible timing. Lisa, wait, Ryan called after her, but she was already walking away, one hand supporting her back and the other protectively placed over her belly. Ryan stood alone in the middle of Romano's, surrounded by the ruins of what was supposed to be the perfect evening. The engagement ring in his pocket felt like a dead weight, and the rooftop terrace above still glowed with fairy lights and romantic ambiance that no longer mattered. He had lost both women in the span of 30 minutes, and he wasn't sure either of them would ever trust him again. Ryan sat in his empty penthouse apartment at 3 a.m, staring at the engagement ring he had never given to Sophia. The small diamond caught the light from the city below, but it felt meaningless now. Everything felt meaningless. Sophia hadn't answered any of his calls or texts since leaving the restaurant. He had driven to her apartment, but her roommate told him she didn't want to see him. He couldn't blame her. In one evening, he had managed to destroy the trust of the woman he thought he wanted to marry. But the more he sat there thinking, the more he realized Lisa had been right about everything. He was running away again, just like he had during their marriage. When their fertility struggles got too painful, he had buried himself in work. When their relationship started falling apart, he had avoided difficult conversations. And when Sophia needed him to be present and honest tonight, he had been lost in his past. The next morning, Ryan did something he hadn't done in years. He called his assistant and told her to cancel all his meetings for the week. Then he fired the 2 assistants who had been screening his calls and blocking Lisa from reaching him. They protested that they were just following his instructions, but Ryan didn't want to hear excuses. "I made a mistake," he told them, "a big one. And because of that mistake, I missed out on knowing about my child for months. That's on me, but you're done." His next call was even harder. He dialed Sophia's number, and after 5 rings, she answered. "I thought I made it clear that I didn't want to talk to you," she said, her voice cold. "You did," Ryan replied, "but I owe you an explanation and an apology." "I don't want either," Sophia said. "I want you to leave me alone so I can figure out how to move on from this mess." "Sophia, please." "Just 5 minutes." There was a long silence, then Sophia sighed. 5 minutes. That's it. "I should have told you about Lisa from the beginning," Ryan said. "Not just that I was divorced, but why we divorced and how much it still affected me. I thought I had moved on, but seeing her pregnant last night made me realize I never dealt with losing her properly." "Are you still in love with her?" Sophia asked quietly. Ryan had been asking himself that same question all night. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "But I know that I can't ask you to marry me when I'm not sure. That wouldn't be fair to either of us. So that's it? We're over." "I think we have to be," Ryan said, his heart breaking as he said the words. "You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart, not someone who's still figuring out their past." Sophia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I actually respect you for being honest. Most guys would have just tried to convince me everything was fine." "Everything isn't fine," Ryan admitted. "I'm about to be a father and I have no idea what I'm doing. I need to figure out how to be the kind of man who deserves to raise a child." After they hung up, Ryan felt both terrible and relieved. Ending things with Sophia was painful, but it was the right choice. She deserved better than being someone's second choice. The hard part was figuring out how to approach Lisa. He spent 3 days working up the courage to call her, and when he finally did, she sounded tired. "What do you want, Ryan?" "I want to do better," he said simply. "I want to be involved in our child's life, but only if you're comfortable with that. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you by making it impossible for you to reach me. I fired the people who were screening my calls and I want to make this right." "It's not that simple," Lisa said. "I've spent months preparing to do this alone. I've got everything figured out. I don't need you to swoop in and disrupt my plans." "I'm not trying to disrupt anything," Ryan said. "I just want to be a father to our child. Whatever that looks like, however you want to handle it. I'll follow your lead." Lisa was quiet for so long that Ryan thought she might have hung up. Finally, she spoke. "I have a doctor's appointment next Thursday at 2 o'clock. If you want to come, you can. But this isn't about us, Ryan. This is about the baby." "I understand," Ryan said quickly. "Thank you." That Thursday, Ryan sat in a medical waiting room for the first time since their fertility treatments years ago. But this time felt completely different. This time there was hope instead of desperation. When they called Lisa's name, she looked at Ryan uncertainly. "You sure you want to do this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Ryan replied. Seeing their daughter on the ultrasound screen was the most incredible moment of Ryan's life. She was real, moving around, sucking her thumb. The doctor said she was healthy and developing perfectly. "Do you want to know the sex?" the technician asked. Lisa looked at Ryan. "What do you think?" "It's up to you," Ryan said. "This is your pregnancy. I'm just grateful to be here." "It's a girl," Lisa said, smiling for the first time since Ryan had seen her at the restaurant. "I've known for a few weeks." Ryan couldn't speak. He just stared at the screen, watching his daughter move inside Lisa's belly, and felt tears streaming down his face. Over the next 2 months, Ryan and Lisa slowly built a friendship based on their shared future as parents. They went to childbirth classes together, picked out baby furniture, and had long conversations about how they wanted to raise their daughter. They were both different people now. Lisa had grown stronger and more independent during her months of preparing to be a single mother. Ryan had learned to be present, to listen, and to put someone else's needs before his own. When Lisa went into labor on a rainy Tuesday morning, Ryan was the first person she called. He drove her to the hospital, held her hand through contractions, and was there when their daughter Elena was born at 6:47 a.m. "She's perfect," Lisa whispered, holding their tiny daughter for the first time. Ryan looked at Lisa holding their child, both of them exhausted but glowing with joy, and felt something shift in his chest. This was what love was supposed to look like. Not desperate or needy or complicated, but peaceful and complete. "We did good," he said softly. "Yeah," Lisa agreed, looking up at him with tears in her eyes. "We did." They didn't talk about getting back together. They didn't make promises about the future. They just focused on being the best parents they could be to Elena. But 6 months later, when Ryan brought Elena back to Lisa after his weekend with her, Lisa invited him to stay for dinner. They ate takeout pizza on her living room floor while Elena played with her toys, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I've been thinking," Lisa said as Ryan was getting ready to leave. "About what?" "About second chances," she said quietly. "About whether people can really change." Ryan looked at her, at the woman who had given him the greatest gift of his life, and smiled. "I guess we'll find out." It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better. It was real.